The United States has always been known as a melting pot of many cultures. By 2050, groups we now call ethnic minorities, including Latinos, Asians, and African Americans, will compose half of the United States population. As our ethnic populations continue to grow, understanding cultural diversity becomes even more important to our country as a whole. We are home to more than 66 recognized ethnic groups. Each group has its own cultural identity, and most include subcultures as well. For example, there are 350 different American Indian tribes. There are 30 separate ethnic groups among the Pacific Island Asian Americans. Caucasians also have many subcultures, such as German, Italian, Irish, or Russian. Hello, I'm Marian Karpinski, and I'll be your host during this program. Today there is a movement in our country to improve the quality of health care to all people. In this program, we will explore what it means to be a culturally competent healthcare provider and show you ways to provide quality care to people of diverse ethnic and social backgrounds. The healthcare system in the United States has its own culture and adheres to a very specific set of beliefs. Individual choice, efficiency, and technology are highly valued. Illness is believed to be a result of germs, viruses, or stress. People from different cultures do not necessarily share the same beliefs we have about what causes illness and how illness should be treated. If we disregard the role that beliefs and values play in regard to health, the quality of healthcare suffers, and we can even do harm. When we think of cultural diversity, we often think of someone of a different nationality or race. But cultural differences are much broader than that. Each of us is involved in many cultures and subcultures. For example, each of us has the culture we grew up in, the culture of being male or female, the culture of our sexual orientation, and the culture of our education and work. These all combine to form our belief system. Each person who seeks health care comes with unique experiences and beliefs that define for him or her what is healthy and what is not.
You can ask people from various cultures, how do you define health? And it will be different than how we might define health. And what we would do to stay healthy. Whether we consider exercise being a very important part of staying healthy or eating certain foods will keep you healthy, then that's part of your belief system that is culturally learned. This is something that's passed down from generation to generation. You've learned it from your mother, your grandmother, etc.
Everyone from every culture tends to assume that his or her culture and way of life is the best, and that everyone should think and do things the way that he or she does. This attitude creates a barrier to good health care. Misunderstandings occur when care providers lack respect for cultural differences, or are not aware of how cultural factors influence the overall success of health care.
Mental illness, for example. There have been patients that have been institutionalized in mental institutions because we just misinterpreted schizophrenia, for example. Also, we've had some tragic misdiagnoses or interpretations of people's beliefs. One example comes to mind right here in San Francisco in the mid-70s when we were having quite a few of the refugees from Vietnam coming. And there was a family where they utilized what's called coin rubbing. It's they take like a quarter or a coin and rub it on a child's back if they had a fever. And sometimes it raises welts on the back of the child. And this was a young family, had 3 or 4 children. they brought the child into the hospital and they said, you know, this has a fever, etc. And they saw the welts on the back of the child's on the back, and they thought child abuse, and they put the husband in jail. And this was such an affront to his dignity, and that they would think that he would actually try to harm the child, that he hung himself in jail. And here now his wife and children are in this foreign land, all from a misunderstanding of, this was one of the things they thought helped a fever. So it's this misinterpretation. I mean, this is an extreme example, but this is how far it can go.
Cultural competence is important in healthcare because it breaks down barriers in delivering quality patient care. When you come into a cultural home that's different from your culture, in order to be accepted by the person that you're going to be providing care to, and in order for you to feel comfortable about what you're doing and the fact that you don't violate what isn't acceptable in that culture, it's important that you know what's of value in the other person's culture and what shapes who they are. I think that it allows for a better understanding. I think it allows for a place to begin in the healthcare relationship that's much more comfortable for the patient or elder, as well as the person providing care. It links us together. It allows us to communicate better, and it allows us to appreciate who we are and what we can do for one another.
A culturally competent approach ensures that all people have equal access to high-quality health care. Culturally competent care is designed to fit an individual's cultural beliefs, values, and customs, rather than imposing one standard of behavior and beliefs on everyone. Using this approach, the patient is provided with meaningful and beneficial care. Beliefs about the causes of illness and disease and what is effective to heal them differ from culture to culture. Illness may be seen as a punishment or a curse.
They believe that there's the imbalance between yin and yang in the body and the energy. For disastrous disease like cancer, leprosy, for TB, they think that it's the God's will, or mimesis, or they receive that because they have that disease because they did something wrong in their previous life, and in this time, in this life, they get that disease as a punishment, or some even think that they did something or say something bad or disrespect to their grandfather and their past family member, then they got it as a result.
Emotional, cultural, or religious beliefs may present obstacles to healing unless they are identified, discussed, and negotiated.
The most important factors in delivering competent care, culturally competent care, is again to have an open mind, to be accepting and respectful of another culture. It doesn't mean that you would do those kinds of behaviors. You just have to respect the fact that this is the way those patients would practice health care. And then it's a matter of negotiation, trying to find out what will work, a willingness to negotiate.
It is important to be open to the participation of folk healers or spiritual mentors in the healing process.
Dealing with Native American clients, to be respectful that whatever it is that they say they're doing, whatever it is they believe, and that's their belief, you know. And I guess if they say it's working and they believe it's working, then, you know, I'm going to believe that it's working for them. I'm not going to say, no, you need to come see the doctor.
Some cultures believe that illness is caused by hot or cold imbalances.
Talking about the hot, warm, cold, and moderate, the Vietnamese look at that these characteristics of all everything, like food, like medicine, and weather, to adjust their life. For example, if you feel hot in your body, you find something cool or moderate to counterbalance your body energy. If they very often they find if they feel their bodies warm or hot, they find something like moderate fruit or food that has the characteristic of cool or moderate to lower your temperature. But it's not the temperature that you can see or you can judge using the thermometer, but it's the feeling of having hot or warm inside your body. It's not vital sign.
Many people from non-Western cultures believe that Western medicines are too strong or hot for their bodies.
They agree that Western medicine is very effective, but it's too strong for them. And compliance to medication or prescription for certain people, for certain Vietnamese, is not very good, very strict, because they think that once they think that they are feeling better, they can drop or they can take it fewer in a lesser amount, or they can lower the prescription, or they think, oh, someday they think, oh, I'm very good, I'm feeling well, I think I can run more than before, and then they say, okay, that's good, I stop.
Culture determines whether we prefer a formal or informal approach in our interactions with others. In America, we tend to be informal. We are quick to address people by first name. In many other cultures, addressing a person by first name only is considered very rude. Learning the appropriate form of address is important in establishing trust. If you are not familiar with the cultural customs of the person you are working with, it is best to ask him or her what is appropriate.
What is the best way to address you?
Mrs. Hatto is fine.
Good.
If I were going into an African American's home, African American elder's home to deliver care, I would address the elder by their full name. I would never, and I never do, approach an older person and call them by their first name, even if they give me permission. Even if I encounter a 70-year-old woman who says, you can just call me Mary, and her name is Mary Jones, I say, well, all right, Mrs. Jones. Okay? So that would be important, I think, and I think that's a safe thing to say, that it's a Mrs. So-and-so. And that historically goes back to the segregated South, where a woman was called a girl or a male was called a boy. And so blacks among themselves called themselves by their formal title, because no one else in the culture did.
Culture is about variety. Even within one culture, there is tremendous diversity. Age, education, and individual personality influence how someone expresses his or her culture.
When a person providing care goes into the home of someone that represents a different culture, that culture could be African American culture, it could be Latino culture, it could be Asian American culture, you're more likely to find an intergenerational household than you are in the Caucasian population. And again, heterogeneity comes into play, because the life experience that shaped that elder and their generation is not going to be the same life experience that's perceived the same way that shaped the adult child or even the grandchild.
Each culture has a unique style of communication. The speech pattern for Americans is generally fast-paced and assertive. In some other cultures, people speak more slowly and softly. Eye contact is also culturally determined.
Eye contact most definitely doesn't always occur with a lot of people, a lot of natives, especially the older traditional people. Okay. And most often it's not, and people I think used to say, well, it's because they're not listening. Well, they're listening, They don't need their eyes to listen. But when it's their turn to respond, then they'll raise their eyes up. Or
When a person speaks softly or avoids eye contact, he or she may not necessarily be expressing shyness, lack of interest, or evasiveness. That style of communication may simply reflect his or her culture. In each culture, there are subjects such as death, money, sexual matters, and certain body parts that are not discussed. It is important to approach these subjects with sensitivity and to educate the person about the need to discuss certain topics in regard to health and prevention. 70 to 90% of communication is nonverbal. Nonverbal cues also differ from culture to culture. Even simple gestures of greeting vary between cultures. We are accustomed to shaking hands in greeting. In some Asian countries, a slight bow is the traditional greeting. In India and Tibet, the hands are pressed together in a prayer gesture. Many gestures that we feel are acceptable, such as the peace sign, the OK sign, or the thumbs up, are considered offensive or may even be profanities in other cultures.
If you happen to ask people to stand up or to come to you or come over, and you use just one finger and come on, and they don't accept it because using one finger to point at people is very bossy. And if you ask someone to come to you, approach you, come nearer to you using just one finger and make sign like this, it's just like asking a dog or a pet at home to do that. But they don't want to be assimilated to an animal when you talk to them. It's best to use the whole hand, the full hand, making sign. If you happen to talk to somebody and crossing your hands behind you, and for them, they will see that it's a very bossy gesture or aggressive or could be unfriendly. Or usually parents talk to children in